Hello everyone, I just thought I'd give you another little bookshelf tour. The last one I did was 9 months ago and I've not really uploaded any videos since, and my goal in 2024 is to upload more booktube videos and philosophy videos. It's a very small room, so I'm having to stand quite far into the corner. But these are the bookshelves I currently have, and as you can see, they're already getting quite full. And I have a whole lot of other books at my parents' house, and that's about 3 or 4 full bookshelves worth of books. So this is only maybe a half of my book collection, which is kind of concerning. But am I going to stop buying books? No. My favorite book on here is The Odyssey. I think The Odyssey is amazing, and I know everyone talks about how amazing The Odyssey is, and then you read it and your mind is blown at how incredible and beautiful and profound and different it is in reality. And I would recommend everyone read The Odyssey. And this 1984, I have actually got about 5 copies of 1984. I have not read from that copy, but I do like the fact that they made it into a cloth-bound edition. The next one on here that I'm going to read is Inferno, Dante, but a different copy. These are my collection of the cloth-bound poetry ones are just here for now, and I really love these. I want to get some more. I've read all of them. So these are my Penguin philosophy editions, and the ones in the front are the ones that I've not read from these editions, and then the ones at the back, I'll move this, are the ones that I've read from these editions. And these are some of my favorite books. I really love them, and it's nice to have a decorative philosophy collection, which you don't normally get. Like, the academic ones are pretty ugly, whereas these ones are quite pretty. My next read, I'm going to read The Narrow Road to the Deep North, because first of all, it's such a beautiful cover. I love the cover, but I never heard of it before, and the only reason I've heard of it was because it's part of this collection. But I think it's Japanese poetry from the 11th century, so I'm really excited to read this. I'm moving on to my Penguin English Library editions. So these are the books that I've read from the Penguin English Library editions, and I will one day rank these when I've read a lot more. But these are some of my favorite books ever, because first of all, they're so cheap. At least in England, they're extremely cheap. Like, this is $5.99 when I bought it. It's probably $6.99 now. So you can get great editions of classics that look really pretty, that don't get damaged when you read them, and they're cheap. And I just think this is a perfect book, so I'm gonna buy them all and read them all in my lifetime. Well, at least that's the plan. The last book that I had just read from this is Passing by Nella Larson, and I live near Exeter, and in Exeter they have a vending machine where you can buy books at one of the train stations, because the guy who invented or founded Penguin, the publishing company, was he's called Alan Lane, and he was in Exeter train station and like 70 years ago, and was frustrated that he couldn't buy a book at the cheap book that was good quality at the train station. So he founded his own publishing company, and that's how Penguin came into being. So Penguin, the company now, have put a vending machine there, and I actually bought this in the vending machine, so that was kind of fun for me. And this one is it was written by a mixed race woman in the 1920s in Harlem, America, and the book is just full of really amazing insights about race and conflicts about trying to pass as white or trying to pass as black, and the type of different moral situations that might happen because of this, and how it affects your identity and your children and your marriages. And it was really amazing for the insight of being mixed race or black or white in 1930s America. I think it's a really incredible book for that, and I've not really read a book like it. So I finished that yesterday. It was good. And then if I go along to this section, this is just the ones I've not read yet. Then mainly I've not read them because they're bigger, and we tried to read the shorter ones of these books because I'm trying to write short stories at the moment, and also because it's easy to read after you've been reading very long books. And moving on to the whole shelf here, most of it is just poetry. So I've been writing poetry, and to write good poetry you have to read great poetry, so that's what I've been doing. And I have a range of poets here, so I have some contemporary authors like Raymond Antrobus. I think he is a deaf black British author, very interesting, quite good. And obviously I got Ocean Vuong because everyone talks about him, and Wendell Berry. I think a more contemporary author too. But then my favorite one is definitely Philip Larkin. He's the poet that got me into poetry because I started reading his collection and it was amazing. I have just fell in love with poetry after that, so I've been collecting more. I really liked James Fenton. I thought he was very talented, and I read his book about an introduction to English poetry too, which was very well written. Next I'm reading, I think, Rumi, or maybe not next, but hopefully soon I want to read Rumi. And I've read quite a lot of Keats and Wordsworth at the moment, and I'm going to read all of Donne and Dante. Those books are somewhere else, but I'm going to read them. And then next year I'm going to read Auden and Bukowski, and then C. I have read some of these poems, and I don't know if I really like Louise Gluck's poems, but I just might be stupid and don't understand poetry. Who knows? And I have read this before many years ago, and I think I do like Ted Hughes, but I'm not too sure if he's maybe overrated. And I never read Seamus Heaney, so I need to read him pretty soon too. I think I'm going to buy some anthologies as well to get a bigger range, because obviously there's only so many poetry books that you can buy and read, and I'm just trying to improve my range as much as possible. So if you have any favorite poems or poets or anthologies, just let me know in the comments, because I'm definitely gonna pick them up and have a look. Moving downwards, these are, I think so I've read from here to here, and these are the books that have most influenced me, or my favorite books that are influencing my book that I'm writing at the moment, my novel. So these are James Joyce. I love this book. I didn't really understand everything, but I love this book, and I love it so much that I don't even want to read Ulysses or Dubliners, because I think this is perfection. This is so amazing. And I recently read Saul Bellow, and I don't know why I've never really heard of him, because he is an amazing author. Like, this is it's so slim, but it has such a big impact on you, and he really writes incredibly well. So I would definitely recommend Saul Bellow. And obviously there's Goethe. I love Goethe. This is probably my favorite book of all time, because he wrote the perfect novel. This is actually the perfect novel. I can't even describe how amazing this book is, and I'll probably make a video about it actually. Honestly, out of all the books I've ever read, this hits you and changes you as a human being. It is that good. So I'm just I need to make a fangirl video over John Williams. So yes, and there's some Ernest Hemingway. I have this copy of Ernest Hemingway, and it's the The Penguin recently as well, like a few weeks ago. I read The Remains of the Day, read it in one sitting. In fact, no, I was gonna read it in one sitting, and then I had to keep stopping myself from reading it so fast because I wanted to appreciate the book. And so then I read it over 2 days. But this was really good. I can see why that he won the Nobel Prize just from this book, and I'm gonna reread this several times. It was a really, really good book. And it's nice to read a contemporary author, you know, someone that's still alive that you can look up to and just see the amazing talent and dedication that he put into his craft. 5-star book, and I'm gonna read all of Ishiguro's books now. So that's a new obsession. I also have Dostoevsky. I think I preferred The Gambler, but then I don't know, in fact they were both just really good. There's Notes from the Underground and The Gambler. I think I preferred The Gambler as a story. I thought it was really good, and he does really explain and describe gambling addiction really well. I think Dostoevsky was a gambler himself, but then Notes from the Underground is also incredible. So my first Dostoevsky, and I'm gonna have to read all of his books too. Moving on to this side is books about war, the First World War, that I need to read. So I can't really talk that much about it, but that's what I'm gonna read next year. And moving quickly down to this shelf. So this is I'm just moving this camera on every shelf, and then I have to move it back, so let's put it up there. On this shelf is all of the books that I've read recently or like this year. Apart from these are just to hold it up. And yes, I do have an Ali Hazelwood rom-com kind of book, and no, I don't regret it. It was £5 and it was a fun reading experience. Sometimes it's nice just to read not serious books, you know. I really enjoyed all of these books. All of these books are great. Foster is amazing. It's probably one of the best books that I've read the last few years. The last line of Foster is like a missile. It's like you got hit by a missile. That is what the last line of that book is. I can't even believe how amazing and masterful the last line is. It just ties everything together based upon like 2 words or 1 word. And it is honestly, it's one of my favorite books. I really love her. And then these are some of the non-fiction I've been reading. So I've been reading books about the French Revolution. I'm reading a book about Napoleon at the moment. The Ascent of Women, a book about the science of sleep. This is A Night to Remember, about the Titanic disaster. Really, really good. Very well written. And the movie Titanic is very heavily based on that. Like the scenes from this book are in the movie. These are as you can see, this is a lot of George Orwell, because George Orwell is great. I love George Orwell. I'm going to read all of his books, and there's some Kafka and Hermann Hesse and more Camus and things. So I'm just going to keep collecting these ones because these are always my favorite books. Moving swiftly down, this is just folios books that I probably am not going to go into. These are the hardback books I read recently, or like the last 6 months. So there's The Empire of Things, which is like the history of consumerism from the 15th to the 21st century. I really loved that. I really like reading about economics. And then Merchant Soldier Sage, about where political and economic theory will go in the future and where it's been in the past. That's quite an old book, but I'm glad I read it. And then the same here, it's just books that I kind of read recently. So I've got the In Memoriam book, which is definitely overrated. People are giving it like 5 stars, and I think it's a 3-star book, but okay. Each to their own. And moving up, this is books I want to read in the near future, so it's kind of like a TBR cubby. And these are books that my boyfriend is reading. I have read this. I would say it's very important, and we should never eat ultra processed food as much as we can. So would recommend that book if you're interested in food health and diet related illnesses. As you can see, it's quite a range on here: Orwell, Clausewitz, Arnold. So these are Victorian writers, and then I have some modern stuff. And the Beyond Impossible book is about ultra running, because I really want to become an ultra runner one day. So I'm reading some books about running, and I heard that Murakami is a runner, and he has a book called What I Talk About When I Talk About Running, which sounds really fun. And I've never read Murakami, but I know that people often rate him as their favourite contemporary author. So I'm actually probably going to read that book first, just because I'm interested in running, but maybe it will kickstart a Murakami obsession, who knows. And then moving on, this is the books that I'm kind of reading at the moment, or next to read. So I've got Mathematician's Apology, which was written by a mathematician about 100 years ago or 90 years ago, something like this. The Little Prince, I definitely want to read that soon. These are my poetry books that I'm going to read after my Wordsworth book about Buddhism, 1984, because I'm rereading this very soon. And I've read like 75% of all of these. It's quite repetitive. I wouldn't actually recommend reading this unless you're obsessed with Martin Luther King, but he did write very beautifully, and I'm glad I'm reading it, but I'm just reading it slowly. And then the books behind it are all of my very short introductions to things, which is like an intellectual history almost of anything that you could possibly want to read about. So that's really cool. I'm not really going to go too much into that. I read all those. Moving up are some more books that I want to read soon. We have Cormac McCarthy and some more Claire Keegan. Things Fall Apart. This book, I literally do not know how I have this book. It's one of the early books where I just don't know where it came from. But this guy, Patrick Modino, however you say this, he won the Nobel Prize of Literature, so I'm definitely going to read it, but I just don't know where it came from. Not that I'm complaining, of course. Maybe it was a charity shop. And then we got I Want to Read This, the Herzog. This is meant to be his masterpiece, but I read Seeds of the Day. I feel like Seeds of the Day is a masterpiece, so, but this is meant to be his magnus opus, I think. The Bhagavad Gita I'm going to read hopefully soon. And there's a book about philosophy and how it's created the contemporary situation. And then this was nominated for the Man Booker Prize, or the Booker Prize this year, and it didn't win. I don't know if it was even shortlisted, or was it shortlisted? I don't know, but it was nominated, and I've not read it, but it does seem quite interesting. And then moving up quickly is another shelf of TBR books. I have White Teeth and Salman Rushdie on there. These two authors are always mentioned, like these two books are always mentioned a lot, and I do want to read them because they're contemporary authors, but they're also quite big, and I'm just not a fan of reading big books at the moment, which is funny because I'm surrounded by very large books, but okay. There's some more ones. The Unbearable Lightness of Being, definitely want to read this, and it's by Faber and Faber. I really love Faber and Faber books in general. This one is about maths, and it's about a professor who has some kind of short-term memory condition, so he only remembers 8 minutes of time at a time, and he has a housekeeper, and he used to be a mathematician, and it's all about their relationship and the wonders of maths, and it just sounds amazing. It honestly sounds like an incredible book, and this is a very pretty copy. I think there's 5 Japanese authors, these vintage Japan books, so I really want to read this soon. There's just so many books I want to read. not enough time. And then moving to the next one is some more books. This book about ultra running and being a vegan. I bought this and I will eventually read it. We've got Cicero, Golden Age of Indian Buddhist Philosophy I want to read. This is a very famous philosophy book written about 50 years ago about Galileo and infinity and things. Sounds very good. And then these are my philosophy books, so I'm not really going to talk too much about them. They're just there. And then these are books that just had to be there because there's no space, and they're, again, big range, and don't know when I'm going to read them. So most of these are getting like quite bulky, like the big ones, and there's a whole bunch of books behind them as well, so I'm not going to go for it today, but I am going to have to rearrange my entire bookshelves very soon, I think, because this can't go on the shelf. Ignoring the Christmas calendars are like my folio, some of my folio books that I have, and then some contemporary hardback books that I want to read. So I'll show you these. These are hardback editions I need to read too. And I bought this to Paradise just because I liked the title and I read the blurb and it seemed really interesting. But it turns out this author wrote a really famous book called A Little Life or A Little Lie, one of those, which I've not read. It's on my list, but I just didn't know at the time, so I just bought this because it seemed really good. But she's apparently a really good author, or at least her previous book is really good, so I'm actually quite excited to read this. And then this, Demon Copperhead, won loads of awards last year. So this is based on a Charles Dickens book, and I don't know if David Copperfield, and I don't know if I want to read that first and then read Demon Copperhead, or I want to read just Demon Copperhead and ignore David Copperfield. I actually just don't know what I should do, so if anyone has any recommendations with regards to that, I would be most eager to hear. And then moving up very quickly, ignoring the Christmas cards again. You can tell what time of year I'm filming. Oh, it was very well bloody then. I bought this because I really like fantasy books. I don't actually read a lot of fantasy books, but as a kid, I really liked fantasy books. I just started reading this in the bookshop and then I couldn't put it down, so I bought it. And I'm actually quite excited to read this. Apparently it's like a contemporary Lord of the Rings kind of book. And Lord of the Rings is great, you can't go wrong. So I actually really want to read this quite soon, even though it's quite big. So this is the book I'm currently reading, the Napoleon the Great, which I found in a bookshop a few months ago for like £4. They were getting rid of it, so I was like, definitely gonna buy this because it ties into my French Revolution books that I'm reading, and the book I read only talked about the beginning of Napoleon's career. So I bought this book, and then it turns out there was a Napoleon movie coming out. So I actually watched the movie last week. It was a really fun movie, and now I'm reading this. But I'm saying that I don't have time to read big books, but this is mammoth. It's so big, and I'm still reading it, so it's quite exciting. I'm reading it very fast. In fact, it's quite easy to read. So thank you for watching my hopefully very quick bookshelf tour. I didn't obviously go through everything because that would just be a task that sounds never ending, but yeah, I hope you enjoy. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to read. Let me know if you have any book recommendations. I love books, as you can see. They are just my life, and yeah, I'm really excited to start making more videos. Bye.